Hello, my name is Major Christopher Lewis, and this is the benefits of creating an ethical culture. Here's my agenda I plan to follow. I will go with my purpose. We'll talk about what is an ethical culture, discuss a few of the benefits of creating an ethical culture, and we'll wrap it all up with a summary. My primary goal of this presentation is to bring awareness to the importance of fostering an ethical culture in an organization. Everybody says that they want one, but aren't quite sure why they need or how to get it. We'll start by answering the question, what is an ethical culture? And then we'll discuss some of the tools that are required to establish this ethical culture. To begin, we have to understand exactly what is meant by an ethical culture. Let's take a look at the individual meaning of each of these words. First is the word ethical. Ethical is defined as being in accordance with the rules or standards for right conduct or practice, especially the standards of a profession. I guess you could say that ethical is doing the right thing. Next, we'll take a look at culture. Culture is described as a way of thinking, behaving, or working that exists in a place or organization. A culture is not just how one person thinks or behaves, it's an attitude that's emulated by everyone and everybody in the organization. Essentially, an ethical culture is an environment where people think, behave, and work in accordance with the standard. So, how do we know what right looks like in order to establish an ethical culture? There are some things that must be in place in order to build a solid foundation for an ethical culture. To begin, the organization needs to know what the standards are. Standards are established through regulations, policies, codes of conduct. That's just to name a few. To be effective, they should be written. It is very hard to deny a rule exists when it's in writing. It is very important that you do not create a standard for the sake of having one. They should be well conceived, carefully crafted, and most importantly, effectively implemented. They should not be so rigid that they're impossible to comply with, and at the same time, they should not be so loose that they do not elicit the ethical behavior that you intend them to do. Now that it is written, now that they make sense, everyone needs to know that they actually exist and what they say. The standards should be widely disseminated within the organization, even making it a part of the new member orientation program is a good idea. Finally, everyone has to comply with the standards of conduct. Since the leadership sets the tone for the organization, they have to be especially vigilant in exemplifying and upholding the standard. The rest of the organization will follow suit if the leadership is doing the right thing. Next, we're going to discuss the 4 benefits of an ethical culture. They are not all inclusive, but I believe these are the most impactful in an organization. The first benefit is resource protection. This is ensuring that resources are used effectively and as intended. In organizations with strong ethical cultures, employees are less likely to use the color copier to make flyers for their child's birthday party, use the company-issued phone to make long-distance phone calls, or spend many hours out of the day on Facebook instead of doing their work. While these things may seem minuscule, the cost and the wasted man hours will add up over time. Finally, employees in organizations with strong ethical cultures are less likely to tolerate those that are not in compliance with the standard. They will either address the issue directly with the person or bring it to the attention of leadership. The second benefit is increased teamwork and productivity. Many of us are familiar with the saying that we are a reflection of the people that we surround ourselves with. That logic definitely applies in organizations with high ethical cultures. Studies have shown that people work harder and are more productive when they are in an environment they perceive as fair. The high performers can function at maximum capacity because they are not burdened by the demand of carrying the weight of those that do not do their work. These environments can also motivate the less than stellar performer because most people are not comfortable being defined as the weakest link. When surrounded by high performers that hold themselves to lofty standards, they too may be driven to do their best or even lead the organization, which is not necessarily a bad thing. In an ethical culture, one good apple actually ripens the bunch. The next benefit of an ethical culture is improved decision making within the organization. When people have a standard of conduct and understand what right looks like, their options are limited and they normally adhere to the standard. So if the decision is between leaving 10 minutes early or staying until the task is completed, one of those options is totally eliminated because the standard is not to leave work early. This logic can be applied to almost any scenario regardless of the seriousness. There's almost always a right way to do something, and ethical cultures increase the likelihood that the hard right will always be taking over the easy wrong. A strong ethical culture actually rubs off on people. They will buy into it, they will live by it, and they will always strive to meet the standard. When an organization consistently does things the right way, people begin to take notice. There's an increased level of trust in the organization, what it says, it even applies to those associated within the organization. But on the flip side of that coin, it only takes one wrong to erase a lifetime of good deeds. In today's society, no bad deed goes unnoticed, especially by the smartphone. Neither can it escape the 24-hour news cycle we currently live in. Organizations have been destroyed or significantly damaged due to their misgivings getting into the media. Does BP ring a bell? We're inundated with news stories about people who conduct unethical activities and make poor ethical decisions. Unfortunately, their families, their employers, and their organizations are also labeled as unethical. Penn State University and Jerry Sandusky, too many congressmen to name. The U.S. Army recently with General Petraeus and General Sinclair. These are but a few of the entities with the organizations that have high ethical standards, but their reputation was diminished in the public domain by the acts of a few unethical individuals. To avoid these issues and cultivate a strong image when you create an ethical culture within your organization. These are but a few of the benefits of creating an ethical culture. So let's recap. An ethical culture is essentially an atmosphere where people adhere to a standard of doing what is right. These standards must be written, smart, actionable, and being complied with by all. And finally, by implementing these standards, you create a culture in the organization that facilitates maximum effective use of resources, exhibits high productivity and teamwork, supports ethical decision making, and protects the reputation of all involved. My name is Major Christopher Lewis, and this has been the benefits of an ethical culture. Thank you.